Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help. Let's have a look at Audeze, one of my favorite headphone brands on the headphone market. And I've actually owned a set of LCD2s with the newer phaser technology. And I have to say that generally with this newer phaser technology, it is to some degree very good. But I find that the old faulty Audeze sound somehow sounds more lush, more sweet, more original and unfiltered in a good way. So I actually prefer that. So let's just get into the good stuff. I really like Audeze. It's lush, it's rich, it's smooth, ultra fast, and with this like unusual window into the detail and the structure that just leaves most people mesmerized. And it has a huge amount of naturality, integration, balance, and it has this like funky personality with diva-like qualities. So it really feels like a proper handmade product and not just this usual line of yeah processed manufacturing headphone that we get from most other manufacturers. Sennheiser. And I find that nice. I find that nice. It would be nice to have more companies like Audeze and Grado out on the market. Also, Abyss. I find those two manufacturers just absolutely fantastic and some of the really, really best ones. So, yeah, really, if I had to settle with like four brands, it would be Grado, Audeze, Abyss, and Focal. And I think that would basically cover every single person on the market, and they would be able to kind of with their own gear manipulate the sound in order to make it sound really, really good. And then yeah, maybe like an HD 800 Mark 1 version used. That's also really good value where you can manipulate the sound even though it's a bit cold and impersonal. But yeah, I really like the sweet sound of the original Audeze LCD3s. I wish that all people could hear that. That for me is like Audeze. But it's also just so expensive. I think it's like $3,000 or so. Um, the newer one. I just find because of that price, I just can't really recommend all these. I think that sound wise, they're really, really, really up there, and I've heard a lot of the setups that most people listen to with Audeze headphones. And I have to tell you guys, no one out there is really getting close to the real stuff that they have to offer. Like I'm gonna write at the bottom here for you to read. There is just a lot more detail to be had, a lot more waiting for you to kind of pull it out from the depths below. So yeah, um, I think it's annoying buying a headphone that's about $3,000 when we're looking at, I think it's the LCD3. And then realizing that even though it sounds really good and a lot better than everything on the market, knowing that you're only really listening to about 20% of what it has to offer, it just makes me slightly depressed, knowing that. Um, but yeah, I still think that most people would enjoy that. But just to have that ability to crank up the potential a lot more is a bit of a luxury thing. So yeah, and I like it because it's so compatible with the Audio Note stock sound, which has this like old royal English type of sound. So even though it's very fast and edgy and can do this and that, it does it in a very natural way. And just a very good, well done job, Audeze. I think a lot of people would really like to own Audeze. And I never really got the whole thing with the Audeze X and all these other lower models. They also sound good in their own way, but I just think, Audeze is just about the LCD3s. That's what Audeze is for me. I think that's just like the most sweet, natural, and charismatic headphone that they've ever made. And even the more revealing LCD4s almost seem a bit distant and analytical and too good in a way. But yeah, once you make a proper pairing, like I'm going to show you at the bottom, it's just going to take off to a totally different level. But yeah, you guys have to know that this is the thing. I think that a lot of people with headphones don't really realize that you need a 300B tube amplifier with headphones in general, because they're just generally not really tuned in musically and structurally. So that's a good tip. Just use any 300B tube amplifier. And yeah, if it's an old audio node amplifier that you can also turn into a headphone amplifier, so you can switch between the speakers and the Audeze headphone, great, do that. I did that, and it just made the sound so much more better. I would never want to do that to myself listening to a standard 500 or $1,000 to $3,000 amp, even if it was tube, which generally is better than transistor, especially with Audeze and Grado. Do that. You use some of the money on getting a triode amplifier. That would be really good for most headphones in general. So, I mean, negative. There's the usual stuff that we always hear about Audeze. They're so heavy. They have this clamp, death clamp on your head, almost like one of those head crabs from Half-Life, the Half-Life computer game. And yeah, I've written some things down in order for you to kind of tame that. It took me a while to really understand how to do that. But you also have to understand with Audeze that I think that they made a huge sin with most of their headphones, that they just don't provide a proper cable. And have you ever tried driving a car, a fancy car like a BMW or, I don't know, Ferrari or Mercedes or whatever, and have you then tried using an exhaust pipe on it that is just like really holding it back, so you can't accelerate properly? That's what I feel that most cables, okay, not most cables, but especially the Audeze and the Sennheiser HD 800 series of headphones, I feel that they're just so bad with their cables that it's such a pity, because you can't really judge the headphone before you really remove that thing. And it's just like it feels to me like a basic eBay purchase cable that just locks it into this very old, retro, small soundstage, almost tinny sounding headphone. Once you remove that, the tonality, the soundstage depth, and the size of the soundstage just gets a lot better, and everything else also gets a lot better. So do yourself that favor and just get rid of that stuff. That really holds it back. And I experienced this because I owned the LCD2s, and this really annoyed me. I sold a headphone to a guy, and I had been using the headphone for probably only like 100 or 200 hours, and it was just lying there for like a year or two, and I just wasn't using the headphone. And I thought, this is just a waste. I have like $1,000 just sitting there. I'd rather get the money and then just buy something else. And I had no problems with the headphone, but then Sorry. I took it to this guy, and he bought it from me used. And then, of course, after like 5 hours or so, while I was sleeping, he tried to call me, and it just gave me so much trouble having to deal with it. It's so horrible. And the guy also turned out to be a really horrible, miserable bastard. But so it's probably his karma making that happen. But it just really annoyed me because I had it perfectly stored. It worked perfectly. It was a really good purchase. I paid a lot for it used, so I didn't really, yeah, I didn't earn anything on it selling it. It just was very frustrating, you know. How can I explain it so you guys get it? It cost me a lot of money used. I didn't use it a lot. It was just like stiff, heavy, had this oily smell because you have this like oil you can put on the pads and perhaps also the wood. So it was in good condition. Everything was just working perfectly with it. I never had a single problem. And of course, when he used it out on the street, where I don't know if it's the reaction of the wind or the cold temperature, but somehow the sound, you know, faded a bit in and out. Apparently, that's what he told me, and it was just really nasty having to deal with that. So, and I've read online that this is apparently something that almost only happens with the LCD2 models. And you know, I couldn't really do anything about it because it was over the warranty period. So that's annoying. I feel that when I own a set of Audeze headphones, having to deal with a thing like that, and then only have a warranty that's perhaps 1 or 2 years, it's just, I find that really really weak from Audeze, and they should definitely you know, consider a better solution than that, because I know a lot of people that experience the same problem as me. And it also happened to the more expensive models, you know, LCD3 and even the LCD4 models. I just don't know a lot of people that have LCD4, but I did read about it on the net. It's annoying. It's annoying having to deal with these types of things. You expect that when you buy something costing several thousand of bucks, that it just lasts 10, 20, 30 years. That's my expectation. You know, when I buy a headphone and use several $1,000s on it, I want it to last at least 10, 15, maybe 20 to 30 years if I'm really, you know, really good at storing them. But I think also with Grado, those are like one of the few complaints I have about Grado, that the build quality, you know, it just doesn't quite feel like the amount of money that you're using on them. You know, they just feel a bit fragile, and yeah, I don't think we can kind of avoid this without destroying the sound too much, because in order to protect those very thin membranes or whatever it is that's the throwing the sound out, I think we had to do some sophisticated compensating so that air can't get into them and they're not too sensitive to temperature change. And I think that's also why you get a case with them, you know, to protect it from getting these shocks. So just be careful when you buy these headphones. You know, you don't want to, you know, drop them on the floor or like put them hard down on a hard surface. You want to, yeah, you want to be careful with them, and not go from one extreme temperature to another, or like I did, demo them on the street, because apparently when you demo them on the street in a much colder environment, that apparently can be enough to do something with them, so it becomes faulty. I might have been just unlucky, but it's just annoying having to deal with that. And yeah, you know, Heatphone, it's another company, a newer company that they've started releasing headphones, and they're very competitive to Audeze in some ways, almost better, and definitely price wise. So I think that Audeze has to kind of reconsider the prices. I think they're a bit on the ridiculous side, especially with the LCD4s and also the LCD3s. I think you really, when you have Audeze, I mean, you really only want like, I think everybody only just wants like the LCD3s. And I think if they could sell in every single country of the world LCD3s for $2,000, I would say that LCD3s are probably the best headphone that I would be able to recommend. So if they could keep it at $2,000 in every country in the world, and they wouldn't have these faulty units that you had to change within the warranty period, which I think is ridiculous, within 2 years, then yeah, then I would definitely recommend Audeze. But right now, with the extreme prices and the possibility of that failing, I just can't recommend Audeze, and it really hurts me saying that, because I think that Audeze is probably like a top 10, no, top 5 brand, headphone brand, most likely, sound wise, and I find that a pity. But yeah, that's just how it is. And the closed models, I actually tried a couple of the closed models, and they are good. I just don't think that they're really appropriate for the Audeze sound. I think it's more of an open style headphone. But yeah, I get it. You know, some people like it. They get it in that priority. Fine. Also sounds good in a different way. And you know, with the LCD4 headphone, that is a really, what can you say, almost sick headphone. Disturbingly good, but also really difficult to tame. It's one of the most difficult headphones to tame of all the headphones in the world. So much potential, but also this particular headphone is very locked. You have to have a really crazy good setup, and I have to say, a lot of people, you're not gonna like it. You're gonna have to really seriously consider, if you're getting the LCD4 headphone, as a minimum get the Audio Note 2.1 signature DAC, and as a minimum have a Audio Note CD 2 or 3, just like as a bare minimum. Don't even consider putting like $100 NAT CD player on it and then just running it directly over to a normal $100, $200, $1,000, $2,000 transistor amplifier. You know, it just, you're just wasting your time. Okay, it might sound good for you, but also know this: you're only listening to probably like 5% of what it has to offer, and you're just wasting a lot of money. So, I mean, as soon as I heard my LCD2s on, I think it was an Audio Note 2 I had at the time, and not DAC 2, and then I had like my streamer, which is probably equivalent to a CD3. As soon as I had that connected to the LCD2s, they just became so much more natural, smooth, deep in sound state. If I had to listen to it on a normal, let's just say Sennheiser setup, it would sound horrible. Absolutely horrible. It would be flat, it would be analytical, everything would be like they say in all of these reviews, like a bass bump and this and that hertz and linear and all that shit. It just, you're not getting into the sound, you're not opening up for the good stuff until you reach at least this level. So I would say that with, you know, basically all these headphones that are like $1,000 plus, I mean, you need this as a basic minimum in order to get into the sounds. So it feels so much more natural, and that it's surrendering itself to you and giving you all the control, so you can do whatever you want with the sound, you know. That's my opinion. But yeah, I also heard it on a DAC 5 and with a CD4 audio note model, and it just ridiculously good. And that's just when I realized that Audeze isn't a normal brand like Biodynamic or let's just say most Sennheiser models or most ultrasone headphones. Um, they really make something that gives you a huge potential of milking a really good sound. And I'm glad they exist. I'm glad that someone is really, doing a good job on making a natural and interesting sound. So, um, yeah, those are like my closing arguments for Audeze. Really good sound, and I miss it. I really miss my old LCD2 headphones. But I also realized when I had them in the end that I would just never really be happy having heard the LCD3s. As soon as you hear the LCD3s, you just realize how crap the LCD2s are. It just because it makes the LCD2s sound thin, harsh, raw, flat. But if you only listen to the LCD2s and you have like a decent setup, like I showed you at the bottom, you probably won't feel any reservations. You probably won't feel that like you're missing out on a lot. So maybe you should just do that and spare yourself from the really good experience of the original LCD3s. I don't know, but one thing I do know is that I miss hearing the original LCD3 sound, and I could also enjoy it with the more detailed phaser technology that they use. But then I would have to, up my gear a bit to stabilize the sound. But yeah, great sound from Audeze. And yeah, that's everything I have to say. Remember to like and subscribe. Bye.